Welcome to our show this morning. We're so happy everybody could join us on this beautiful, little bit chilly in New York Friday morning. Welcome, John Case. Happy to
Thank you.
see you uh, down there in West Virginia. We're sorry that Rosanna cannot be with us this morning. She's on her way to the Midwest, but she'll be back next week with a story to tell, I'm sure. She's standing in the corn in Iowa. But corn is an essential product, and you need it in order to live. Let's get started with our show. We've got a lot to talk about, including the debt ceiling debate or debacle. We'll see what happens first. Uh, the NAACP and La Raza and an LGBTQ rights group have issued travel advisories to Florida. And then the senator from Florida, Mr. Scott, said, "We don't want none of y'all socialists coming to Florida. Y'all ain't welcome here." And I don't know if a senator can do that actually, but anyway, I guess you can do what you want. Tina Turner, the great soul singer, passed away this week. And then we'll be paying a tribute to her. And then our mail bag question. It's one of Scott's favorite topics. We'll delve into that. So let's get started. John Case, will it be a debate or a debacle? For 4 or 5
It's going to
days and
be,
deadline comes.
well, I think they're going to get to a deal. I used to negotiate labor contracts, and nobody ever signed anything until the midnight hour because if you didn't, then all sides believed that you left something on the table, and you can't convince your constituency that that was the last best final. So there's that at play, but it sounds like they're going to get a deal. But it sounds to me also like the deal is going to end up freezing or flattening a good part of the president's remaining agenda, and that's does not spell good news, I don't think, considering the threat of recession that's down the road with the increasing interest rates and whatnot. And it could put him in pretty serious trouble as far as the election. So it's a very complicated political calculation for him. It would be great if the people would hit the streets in some way that in some organized way that could somehow influence this, but it looks like it's headed toward a settlement, and it might be a settlement that just kicks the can down the road. Like we'll have a very temporary agreement is the only kind of thing that could pass through both houses. And in that case, it's going to just consume a good part of the political season coming up.
A needed debate or debacle? What's your opinion?
I think it's a debacle. I just think the GOP is really playing the bully here and taking the United States and its economy and its people hostage, um, trying to overturn the last 2 years of legislation that has gotten through both houses of Congress plus the White House. So they want to undo all of that and go back to something previous. They really would like to go back to something before the New Deal, I think. But it's just outrageous the way they've conducted themselves here and holding the United States hostage. And unfortunately, we could have changed this back in the lame duck session. If Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema had gone along with it, we could have solved this problem then. Looking forward to this time when we knew Kevin McCarthy would make a mess of this, and not just Kevin McCarthy, but the whole right wing of the Republican Party. I don't know what is going to happen, but they're just taking money from poor people. They don't care about the deficit, or they would make the rich people pay what they owe, but they're not interested in that. Just taking health care and benefits away from the poorest Americans. It's just a shame.
Those two are blue on the outside but red on the inside. Scott, debate or debacle? Keep in mind now, Warren Buffett, John, you might want to comment on this afterwards. I was listening to a program by him and he said, look, for those of you who are in the know, you know, we know that debt limit is not going to be, it's not going to explode. They're just posturing. But Scott, given the far right fascist fringe that is controlling the Republican majority in the House conference, do you think this is going to be a worked out debate or a political, economic, social debacle?
I think debacle. I think it's already a debacle. Um, the fact that the basic, even the very limited basic things that we've been able to achieve in terms of social welfare are constantly up to be gutted. It's like the rights of working people, the rights of the poor, just you know we're last in line uh, for protection, and that's because we live. Joe, you're always saying it. We live in a bourgeois town, right? We have a ruling class that's divided into two wings. On the one hand, the fascist-oriented, fascist-leaning, and sometimes openly fascistic Republican Party, um, uh, which just wants to, gut everything, destroy everything, take us. We used to say back before the New Deal. I'm now thinking it's back before Reconstruction, before the Civil War.
Mhm.
Um, and on the other side, we have what you might call the liberal bourgeoisie, the sort of centrist, moderate, Biden, Clinton, um, you know, Bill Gates, Michael Bloomberg kind of crowd uh, that's always looking for a way to compromise with those reactionary forces. What's the minimum we can do to get the support of the section of the people that we need to get reelected, while without compromising our own class power as capitalists, right? That's the situation we're in. And John Case is right. It's gonna take a people's uprising to solve this thing, because our rights, our basic protections, guarantees, security, whatever, shouldn't be on the table for being gutted. It's already a debacle.
John Case, here's what I heard over this morning or read. An expectation that the negotiators will hammer out top line numbers for discretionary spending, including a number for military spending, but leave lawmakers to hammer out the fine details of categories like housing and education through the normal appropriation process in the months ahead. That's one position. Second position is that in exchange for voting to raise the debt, GOPers would achieve at least two of their priorities: roll back baseline spending this year, no, 2024, on most discretionary programs, and rescinding some of the 80 billion allocated to the IRS. That rescinded money would then be used to cover much of the shortfall in domestic funding created by the GOP spending cuts, essentially preserving the program while technically cutting the overall top line figure. And the Pentagon and VA benefits would be spared. Good deal?
No, it's not a good deal, but I don't think there's a good deal available. This is a crisis in capitalism, especially U.S. capitalism, that is, teeter. A single miscalculation about McCarthy, as far as the Nazi faction in Congress, or Biden as far as the left wing in Congress, as well. A single miscalculation can, even though they had a strategy of getting to a way to raise the debt limit, they miss it, and they don't have to. They don't. All they got to do, by the way, is get actually really close to it, and the financial implications will start to reverberate big time. I mean, it will not be small. And what is the loss there? The loss there is the dollar in the end will no longer be the most reliable source of value in the commercial world. And when that happens, U.S. imperialism, if I can use that term, will be forced to retreat. It will be forced to retreat because what will happen is that alternative currencies or a basket of alternative currencies, or God help us, just the Chinese yuan as the second strongest currency, will end up having to take the place one way or the other, and will that's a profound change. Even if they recover, these things don't change. I mean, was a major shift after 2008 when the Chinese economy did not crash, but the U.S. economy did, and the recovery of value from that was also never complete. So, you have a general crisis of the system that is going to be. I think we have to assert, that socialist principles need to be weighed in, to find a path to almost any of these obstacles that are in front of us. It doesn't do any good to raise the debt limit, but spend another $1 trillion on the military. What's the military's vision for the world economy? Not very successful. So I don't know. It's a political catastrophe coming up, arising on a crisis in capitalism itself. That's my opinion.
Let's do a lightning round. Biden was wrong to begin negotiating with those Republicans. He should have invoked the 14th Amendment. Yes or no, Anita?
I'd say yes, and I'm glad it's the lightning round because I can just leave it at that, right?
You can leave it at that. Scott, Biden
Yes,
was wrong to negotiate, but should have invoked number 14.
absolutely. That should have been his first attempt. He said he wasn't going to negotiate. He should have started by not negotiating. Then, if he was forced to retreat from there, by the courts or whatever, then, you know, sometimes that happens. But he should have gone in strong, trying to defend his agenda, the agenda that the people elected him on.
John Case,
No,
lightning round.
I don't. No, I don't think so. I think that the constitutional crisis that would result could end up favoring the MAGAs, who want a constitutional crisis more than us. So I think Biden has to negotiate, and we have to confront the aftermath, which is going to be a crisis in capitalism.
Case is making a strong point here. You not only have a fascist running the House, GOP House conference, you got that extreme right in the Supreme Court. So, in those circumstances, Buffett, I don't know, he may be underestimating what's happening, Anita. And
Mm.
therefore, you have a constitutional crisis. And do you have your forces lined up to address the implications of that happening, given that we're on the verge of 2024? Let me put the question a little bit differently. What is a working class posture then on solving the debt limit? Anita?
Well, I think we have to find a longer term solution. I don't know where to start. I think we should have started back when we had the majority in the House of Representatives. Or not we, of course, but the Democrats who are interested in not defaulting. And yeah, I don't know where to go from here. I'm not even sure a people's uprising would be even heard by the in the halls of Congress or the White House negotiating rooms. It's just going to be an anti people's uh, effort to take us hostage, take the economy hostage, and I'm not sure how we can solve it except by getting people out of those elected offices and putting people in there who are more rational and not so attuned to political gain over uh, causing economic disaster.
Scott, that's why confining these debates to these elite groups within the Beltway is problematic. And so, what is a working class response to solving the
Well,
debt limit?
um, in a general sense, I'm thinking of something Lenin wrote in, in Two Tactics, which I cite over and over again because it really is my favorite. But he distinguishes between one of the distinctions he makes between bourgeois democracy and working class democracy is that bourgeois democracy sort of hems itself in by institutions to kind of hamstring its own ability um, uh, to make progressive change, right? It ensures that it has to compromise. Whereas working class democracy goes straight to the point. It doesn't, worry about, um, you know, can we do this institutionally? Is it procedurally correct? Whatever. It says that this is what needs to happen, and uh, you know the working class has to um, organize the power to make that thing happen. Uh, so that's again that's hard to work out in the particulars in this case, but um, I'm not so sure about this idea of a constitutional crisis. I think if we look at Trump's presidency over and over again, um, he did stuff, and then the courts blocked it, right? And he was forced to try things in other ways. And people kept saying, "Oh, constitutional crisis," but it didn't. It didn't really come to that. Um, so I wonder about the extent to which, this idea of preserving our institutions, of operating according to, bourgeois democratic procedures, whatever. In what sense is that just putting obstacles in the way of what the people need? Um,
Well, you just can't make a blanket sweep about the Supreme Court and its decisions during the Trump period, Scott. You have to look at each decision. This is the court that outlawed abortion, for God's sake. After every last one of them, everyone who came up before the Senate said, oh, it's settled law. The duplicitous blankety blanks, isn't that the word? Uh, John Cage, what's a working class response
Well,
to
I
the
think
president?
I think the working class agenda has to be to focus on what unites it, in the overwhelming numbers, and then I'm going to quote Jim Matlis. I don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but this was back when the first in the 70s when the first big anti-union wave started. He says, "I We should have put it before the executive boards of every union in the country to take a rank and file vote on whether we should shut this country down."
Mm.
And now that's just it sounds like a kind of a super syndicalist kind of slogan, and Jim was a bit of a super syndicalist in some ways, but nonetheless, it speaks to the soul of the matter here, and that is that if when the working class shrugs its shoulders, the temples of Wall Street will tremble, and they will. And so I don't think we should ever underestimate that. That's where the power really is. And we have to find ways to reach into it. I'll just give you, for example, in West Virginia, for example, right now, I mean, the labor movement is having gone through a powerful struggle about what to do about the fact that the Republicans have a supermajority in both houses and the governorship too. And Manchin is everybody knows the level of ally he is at times. So, what do you do? Okay. And they've decided to pursue a more or less independent kind of strategy. Um, they claim if you run as a Democrat, you can't get elected. If you run as a Republican, you might as well stab yourself. And so that they're inching toward a kind of interesting, they're trying to provoke this challenge to the leadership and members all across the state. But I think it's a reflection of the fact that there's something seriously broken. It's reflecting itself in a certain way in West Virginia because of our political situation. But nonetheless, I think it's a trend throughout labor that you can see getting around, coming up. That there's steam there, and all you got to do is listen to Cecil Roberts' remarks just on his website today, actually, and get a sense of the feeling out there and in shops across the country I think it's time to keep focusing on that, and let the people. We got to have a. There's got to be an upheaval to shake the foundations, and so new ideas and can get in, and the old ones can be discarded. Because they just aren't working.
That's what we need, an upheaval. And here's what I think. I agree with all three of you on that point. Bernie Sanders was right, along with 14 senators, to call for Biden to use the 14th Amendment. The Black Caucus was right to say no to work requirements. Progressive Caucus, right. Latino Caucus, right. Everybody who was putting pressure on Biden, correct. Is part of the negotiating process. Everybody should, the Republicans, they don't have no qualms about putting the pressure on. Neither should anybody else. You know, they don't understand anything but power, relationships of power. And that's why there needs to be an upheaval on the streets to the suites. Say, we're not taking this no more. And until that happens, it's going to be, politics as usual inside the Beltway. And as my dear late mother used to say, with respect to what's going to happen in 4 or 5 days, we'll see. But if it does happen, there's going to be hell to pay. Let's move the agenda to Anita. I don't want you in Florida.
No.
You got a house down there, don't you? You gonna sell it? What's up?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a well, Florida is a dangerous place. It's a dangerous place if you're an author, if you're LGBTQ community member, or even any kind of African American, Latino minorities. Everybody's. If you're a Democrat in Florida, you're in trouble in certain communities. It's really I think these travel bans were well constructed. I think the maybe the problem I see is the Disney Corporation are the ones that were really at war with DeSantis down there, and they'll be the ones to suffer from a drop off in tourism. But um, I think this was a good discussion. Rick Scott is an idiot, and we all know that. So, yeah, I hope people will think twice before. In fact, especially conventions and those kinds of big groups, I think should look twice or think twice before they go to Florida for an event. Instead, go to a state that protects people's rights and protects the rights of students to have a good education.
Good move on the part of La Raza. I'm sorry, the national. What is the name of the Latino group? And the NAACP and the LGBTQ. I think it's Equality Florida.
Hmm.
Scott, to advise their constituencies not to go.
Yeah, I think it's um, perfectly reasonable, right, to say that this is a state whose government has demonstrated that it's not only indifferent to, but actively hostile to, in fact, the rights of just about all oppressed people, and the rights of working class people as well, in terms of systems of social welfare and support. So yeah, I think it's very reasonable. That said, Rick Scott's warning to socialists not to come to Florida. I think you're going to see a lot more people in Florida turning toward socialism, and turning toward like organizing um, to bring about exactly the kind of upheaval that Joe and John Casey were talking about earlier. So, because communists don't um, stay away when the fight gets rough. That's actually a signal to get in and get more active. So that one's not going to work. But yeah, there are serious issues of safety, I imagine, in Florida for um, most oppressed people.
John Case, boycotts work. And
Sometimes,
I
yeah.
didn't eat grapes for when I was coming up, or lettuce for about 15 years because my mom
I
and
gave
dad
up
would,
on
huh?
iceberg lettuce for 50 years ago, and I've never returned to it.
Yeah,
Um,
the farmers don't need it. I'm buying it.
anyway, yeah. Well,
And the right
yeah,
wing now, they're boycotting Bud Light, which is terrible beer, close to water, because of
yeah.
this trans commercial that they did, and the sales have dropped. So we got to use every tool in the toolbox. No,
It's affecting Target in our community here that was used to have a very friendly. If you were just got married as a gay couple and you went into the store to look for your new dishware or bedroom stuff or whatever that ordinary people do, you got welcomed, and I understand that just this past month that changed under pressure from what we'll call them the Christian nationalist faction in the area here, which pressured them to, I can't remember the details, but the policy changed. And when folks from the gay community went into the store, uh, they noticed it immediately when they asked questions for certain kinds of configurations and certain kinds of whatever wedding preparation stuff that people buy when they get married. So, um, yeah, I think you have to use economic power. What else are you going to do? All right. So I think if they can organize a boycott that's targeted, the problem with boycotts is they got to be targeted in a way that hurts who you want to hurt. Um, I remember we tried to organize a boycott against paper companies one time, but how are you going to get people to boycott toilet paper? It's very difficult.
you can't tell them to go out in the backyard and pick up some leaves, right? Let's move
Nobody
the
gets
agenda.
newspapers anymore, so
Let's move the agenda. Tina Turner passed this week, the great soul R&B songstress, survivor of horrific domestic abuse on the part of her former husband. Uh, let's have a little tribute to her and her legacy by uh, naming your favorite Tina Turner song. Anita, what's your
Well,
favorite song?
I have been listening to a lot of Tina Turner, watching a lot of Tina Turner videos, and all the best, or you're the best. I can't even remember what the name of the song is, but I listened to actually that whole Private Dancer album, which came out in 1984 and really set off her second career. So she's just a real inspiration. She has been an inspiration to women. I think women who are, starting, a comeback career when they're in their 40s. She was just an amazing performer, really put all her energy into it. She had a hard, difficult marriage, but she just pushed on through and, just, turned her attention to what she could do. And she's just she was a wonderful entertainer. So that was my favorite, I'd say.
Okay, Scott,
I'm
your
gonna
favorite
I'm gonna
Turner.
stick with Anita. Simply the Best is an amazing song, and just yeah, Tina Turner's um, energy and dynamism on the stage, and of course, as Anita mentioned, her as a survivor of intimate partner violence and a kind of symbol of of resilience and strength and power. It's yeah, she was wonderful, and she'll be really missed.
John Case, your favorite Tina Turner song.
uh, uh, Proud Mary, which I heard her perform, and she opened for the Stones in 1970 in Chicago, and she was still with Ike actually, because he was playing behind her at that. But her performance was so hot. I was going to use that word. It was so hot that usually the Stones, when they come on, they open up a jumping jack flash or some big loud thing, and they everybody got so worked up in that audience at her performance that they had to bring Mick and Keith on to play a little acoustic guitar music and just chat for a little bit so that everybody would pay attention. And I never saw a more powerful performer, but and she that was the song she sang that night that was just blew everybody away. And even if you heard the other record, you never heard it like that, or performed like that. So, but
Good working class song, Proud Mary. I cleaned a lot of plates in Memphis, and I pumped a lot of tang down in New Orleans. But I never saw a good side of the city until I hitched a ride on the Riverboat Queen. Proud Mary, my favorite song as well. Rest in peace, Tina Turner. Let's go to our mailbag question and wrap up for today. Um, why is capitalism so bad? I mean, I'd rather earn what I deserve than to get some kind of handout because I continue to complain. Anita?
Yeah. Who's getting the handouts here? I mean, the handouts that go to stockholders, people just holding, owning some stock in their portfolios. They get their dividends every quarter or something. Or are they getting something that they didn't earn? I would say so. So you don't, if you're in a normal job, you don't get what you earn. You don't get what you deserve. You get what is left after the capitalist has appropriated the surplus value of your labor. So this reader is confused. He's accepted the premises of the bourgeoisie and the ruling class of capitalism, and what they have, the frame that they've put on what that person is experiencing. And it's just incorrect. So they need to think about a little more deeply.
Scott? 1 minute.
Yeah, every cent of profit that goes to somebody for owning something is uh, a cent of um, just compensation that is denied to the people that built that thing. Labor creates all wealth, so all wealth should return to labor. We, but so one of the ways we describe socialism is um, uh, uh, from each according to their ability, to each according to their work, right? Um,
Right.
uh, and that's kind of the idea of it. We produce things as a class, so all the value of what we produce should come back to the working class. There's no room for shareholders getting dividends, like Anita said. There's no room for executives making, 6 and 7 figure, huge salaries, whatever. All value comes back to the working class. That's what's fair. That's what we deserve.
John
That's the starting
Case?
negotiations.
Why
well,
is
it's
capitalism so bad?
I'll submit to you that it's better than feudalism, and that without it there would be no condition for building socialism. And that the writers question why is capitalism so bad. Well, it's on a scale of it's like they ask are you on the ADD spectrum, and the doctor says, honey, everybody's on the spectrum, just where you are on it. And so so that it's obviously if everybody got what they deserve in this society, then there would be no protest at all. um, and so the fact that there's tremendous antagonism and division and a scourge of many kinds going on, that argument defeats itself. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Um, but we need something better than the capitalism we got. And I would remind folks that the first stage of socialism is been proven, in my opinion, to be not too different than scientifically managed capitalism in certain sectors of your economy. So that's my own feeling about that. But
Well, it depends on where you are, where what the level of development of the economy is. I mean, if you're coming out of feudalism, maybe, maybe definitely, as was Russia, as was China, Vietnam. That's why they have those mixed economies. But why is capitalism so bad? I tell you, because it's got people like our writer, our gentle writer, who are caught up in a web of mythology, mysticism. They're in a dream world about what's happening in reality. No worker gets what they deserve. They create much more value in the course of an 8 hour day, 12-hour day than they get back. No such thing as a fair wage. You know, we said that a long time ago. And nobody gets a handout. And if you don't complain, you won't have unions, you won't have collective bargaining, you won't have civil rights, you women wouldn't have the right to choose, you wouldn't have nothing but a hard way to go. So Proud Mary keeps on rolling because she's struggling. And we want to struggle alongside with the writer, help you come out that web of mythical dreams that your mind is caught up in, this web of illusions, and wake up and join us in the struggle. Why don't you? Everybody, take care, stay strong, stay safe, stay in the fight. Check out the Marxist classes on Tuesday.
Mhm.
I'm holding forth on the role of the party, theory of the party. Tuesday evening, I guess it's at 7 o'clock. Go to cpusa.org and check it out. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Thank you, John. Thank
Bye.
you, Anita.
thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, producer. Take care, everybody.